Good evening. I'm Mary Yusong Callan, a member of the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metropolitan area. Welcome to our candidate forum for the Democratic primary for Brighton Town Council, sponsored by the League. The League is a nonpartisan membership organization. We don't endorse parties or candidates, but we do work hard to make sure that voters are well informed. We are very appreciative that tonight's candidates have taken the time to appear here and participate in a civil discussion of the issues. This forum is being recorded and will appear on the League's YouTube channel within the next few days. A link will be sent to all who registered for this event, and you can find the link on our website. Closed captioning is available. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Dr. Donna Harris. She will now introduce the candidates and go over the ground rules.
Good evening. The League of Women Voters has prepared questions to ask the candidates, but we'd like to get questions from you. If you have any questions you'd like all candidates to answer, please put them in the Q&A that you'll find on the bottom of your screen. All questions will be asked of all candidates. Now it's time to meet the candidates in the order that they will be speaking. Rachel Rosner, Nate Salzman, Jesus Sowell, and Chris Werner. Our timekeeper this evening is Isabel Gillen. She will hold up cards to let the candidates know how much time they have left and when their time is up. The first candidate is to answer a question, has 1.5 minutes. The rest have 1 minute. And now it's time for the candidate's opening statement. Each candidate has 1 minute. Rachel Rosner, please unmute yourself and begin your opening statement.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight. When I came to Brighton almost 30 years ago, I truly never envisioned myself running for public office. That said, I will never be a politician. But I will have always been in the business of serving the public. I'm an educator and an involved community member. I've been advocating for Brighton's families and children for my entire career through my work at the JCC and Autism Up. My time in elected office will emphasize inclusive policy initiatives that leave nobody behind. As elected public servants, we need to do more to ensure that the diverse cross-section of Brighton's residents are included in our shared community vision and values. I believe that government should make people's lives better every single day. And that's why I will work to increase public services, update our zoning laws, and make sure that our tax dollars support not only the town's infrastructure, but the people who make Brighton their home.
Thank you. Next up is Nate Salzman.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Dr. Donna Harris for hosting tonight's candidate forum. My name is Nate Salzman, and I'm one of 2 endorsed Democrats running for Brighton Town Council. Brighton is my home. I'm a 3rd-generation Brightonian. My wife, Samantha, and I met our first day of high school, and 10 years later, we even went on our first date here. After working on Democratic campaigns throughout the country, I moved home to Brighton. In my career, I've worked at the federal, state, and local level, whether it was walking the halls of the White House as an intern for the Obama administration or serving as chief of staff for my friend and mentor, Assemblymember Damon Meeks. I have learned from inspiring public servants. I am excited to bring that experience to work here at home. I've spoken to hundreds of neighbors, and I know that accessibility is a top concern for our families. better access to essential locations without requiring a car, encourages community building, provides equity, and benefits our environment. I look forward to the discussion ahead, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Next up is Jesus Sowell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for allowing me to come and have a debate today with you. My name is Jesus Sowell. I've grown up and lived in Brighton for almost my entire life. I've bring lived experience and grew up in my community, and my mom has been part of the Brighton Democratic Committee since a young age, since I was a young age. And a lot of what I learned from her, I want to bring to the town board. She's always told me that I should be working towards, I'm messing up. I believe that it's time for the younger generation, me, myself, and a lot of my other peers to take a step forward and be part of the government.
Thank you. Next is Chris Werner.
Hello. Hi, folks. I'm Chris Werner. I'm a practicing attorney and served on the town board for 12 years, which is really just an extension of my lifetime of community service. By their example, my folks made it clear that we are all obligated to serve beyond our day jobs. I've taken that challenge very seriously. Now, to be effective, however, you must do what you love. My daughter has a seizure disorder, so I sought out the Epilepsy Association and became board president. I coached girls soccer for 20 years. I served my colleagues at the Monroe County Bar Association, chairing ethics, professional performance, and the public education committees, and was selected by my peers to the board of trustees of that organization. And I love my wife, Lissa, and I've been in her service for 48 years. And I love Brighton. In 8 years on the Parks and Recreation Committee, we developed the parks we now take for granted, and on town board, I've led the government for public works, finance, community service, and now public safety. I know what I'm doing. I've been effective, and I ask for your support in continuing my work. Thanks.
Thank you for the opening statements. Now it's time for our first question. And the first question will go to Nate. You have 1.5 minutes, and then all others will have 1 minute for this question. The first question is, what should be Brighton's priorities? So what should be the town of Brighton's priorities?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. As I mentioned in my opening, as I've gone around knocking on doors, we go out every day knocking on doors, talking to our neighbors, because that's the best way to learn about how to serve the people of Brighton. And one theme that I hear again and again is we need to continue improving accessibility for all of Brighton's residents. Now, I'm committed to improving that infrastructure, especially that walking and biking infrastructure, expanding our walking trails, expanding our bike paths, keeping Brighton a 15-minute town where residents can commute between essential locations, such as grocery stores or schools, without needing a personal vehicle, without needing a car. I really think that encourages community building, provides equity, it benefits our environment. And I'm going to quote our town supervisor here, that building connecting trails doesn't just connect locations, it connects people. And if we talk about, and I hope we're going to talk about affordable housing later on in this discussion, if we're talking about affordable housing, well, if we want to bring people here who don't own a car, how are we going to make that pitch to people unless we have bike trails and walking trails to connect people to those essential resources? So what I've heard as I've knocked doors, it's about accessibility. I know I only have 10 seconds left. Accessibility, I see the stop card going up. Accessibility expands beyond that as well. My grandfather was deaf here in Brighton, and he served as an attorney. Before that was That was a common thing to do.
Thank you,
Accessibility
Nate.
to our
Thank
meetings as
you.
well.
Jesus, you have 1 minute.
I think our town focus should be on accessibility, but also on being sustainable and equitable. Accessibility and sustainability go hand in hand. We have to focus on being kind to the earth and the time that we have on it, and being able to cut back on our footprint on the earth. And then that also includes being equitable to different communities and making sure that everyone has equal chances to have access to Brighton. So,
Thank you so much. Chris?
First of all, I think my primary job is services. The town provides essential community services, whether it's plowing the streets, the police, the library, the parks. All of those things are the basic role of local government. And that's why it's been very satisfying to be involved in Brighton town government, because I think we do those things exceptionally well. Now, beyond that, what we've done in the town and what we will continue to do, as Nate has said, and other folks as well, that connections are very important. We have made connections on Elmwood Avenue, on South Clinton, on Lockdeville, on East Avenue, on sidewalks that make it very easy to get around town without having to go out into the streets. Also, diversity. What brings people to Brighton is its diversity. And we have to make sure that all residents are comfortable and feel valued in this town. And I believe Brighton does that and will continue to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. First, I want to echo what my three colleagues here have said. I agree with all of their sentiments, but I have a little bit of a different twist on things when it comes to accessibility and equity. And that is that we need to do that, to do all of those things that my colleagues mentioned, while with a lens of equity. And to make sure that we are including in the conversation the folks in our town that live on the margins, the just about 9% of folks who live under the poverty line, and those who live just above. We need to be paying attention to the 21% of our seniors who are making every effort to age in place, and how we might be able to support them. And the 43% of households in Brighton that are renters. They need our attention, and everything from zoning to complete streets needs to keep them in mind.
Thank you. The next question goes to Jesus. And this is a two-part question. And you'll have 1.5 minutes. Should Brighton increase the amount of affordable housing in the town? If so, what should the town government do to make that happen? If not, why not?
I do believe that Brighton should look to develop more affordable housing, or look to fund affordable housing development. We could look into providing subsidies for new families starting out, especially when it comes to looking for houses in Brighton and you're thinking about moving out from your parents' house and stuff. You can provide different opportunities for people that grown up in Brighton like myself, who are looking for houses like myself, the opportunity to buy a house in the town that you grew up in and hope to raise your kids in too.
Thank you. Chris, you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Thanks. It's a very good question, and it's very pertinent in the modern world. There's too little affordable housing for folks to live in that are going to be serving their communities. I see this in any number of different communities. Our zoning code needs a review. This I hope to complete in the near term, and we can encourage affordable housing in new development. And we need to remove any kind of impediments in appropriate settings. As an example, in Brighton, however, we've done it in the past. There was a model from many years ago in the Deerfield Woods area where we did a $30,000 grant for homeowners that, as long as they stayed for 10 years, was fully forgiven. Incentive zoning requires that any development has to have a significant affordable housing component, and the Winfield Park and Terrace Building projects both acknowledge that when they made a presentation to the board. Also, Brighton has passed an ordinance prohibiting discrimination of tenants in their
Your time
applications
is up, Chris.
based upon the source
Your
of
time
income.
is up, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. I agree with Chris that our zoning laws need a significant update. Our zoning laws need to allow for much higher density, less focus on single family homes. We need to provide for alternative dwelling units and also more affordable housing. We need to be able to provide those who might come to Brighton and want to live in those affordable housing units with the supports and services, including public transportation, that they will need if they would like to live in Brighton. In addition, we need to be able to attract those folks to want to come and live in Brighton. Just last week, the state legislature was unable to pass tenant protections. So we need to do things at the local level and pass legislation so that we can protect tenant rights and encourage folks to move into our town.
Thank you. Nate?
I'm so glad we got back to affordable housing, just like I brought up in my last answer. Yes, I'm excited to work with our town council to build more affordable housing. Just like Chris Werner said, residential projects, all residential projects should include some type of affordable housing, but it comes down again to accessibility. And I know I keep harping on this. To expand those walking paths and bike trails, I want to give kudos to the current town council, which has constructed the bike lane that is coming to Elmwood Avenue that connects our major employers, the University of Rochester, to Brighton. If you talk about affordable housing, you have to connect people to their jobs. I work currently for Monroe County, and that's the kind of experience I can bring to connect Monroe County. Elmwood Avenue is a county-owned road to the town to be able to get those projects done. I've sat in the meetings with RTS, with Assemblymember Demond Meeks. I will work with them to expand bus routes throughout Brighton and to be more reliable.
Thank you. Your time is up. Chris, you get this question, and we're going to talk about the needs of youth. Do you think the town offers sufficient recreation and other programs for its youth to keep them healthy and engaged in positive activities? You have 1.5 minutes.
Yes, I believe we've made tremendous strides in Brighton for youth services and youth accommodations. When I came to Brighton in 1988, there was one town park. We rented it from the state of New York for $1 a year. That's over on Westfall, the other side of South Clinton. Since then, we have had 500 new acres of parkland in Brighton. It was my joy on the Parks and Recreation Committee to develop the parks and design them at Corbett's Glen, at Meridian Center, and at Buckland Park, putting in the playing fields that are there now. Could we do more? Certainly. I've heard people ask for skate parks, for water parks. There's any number of different things that we can do. As they say, it only takes money. So we'll continue to find innovative ways to fund projects like that through incentive zoning, through grant funding, which we've done both in the current winter's farmers market and with the trails that we've developed, such as the Auburn Trail, which was done totally at developers' expense. And similarly, the Sandra Frankel Nature Park and the Brickyard Trail was developed as an incentive zoning project where we purchased that land for 1/3 of what the developer paid for it. So I believe we've done a tremendous amount to enhance opportunities for youth recreation and services in general.
Thank you. Rachel, you have 1 minute.
Great. I think this is a great opportunity to talk about the possibility of our town's new recreation facility, and what kind of programs and services might be offered to town residents there. When I think about youth, in my mind, that extends up to a person in their mid-20s, really. And I think about the kinds of things that the town could be partnering with other governmental or organizational partners to provide for those young adults. Are we offering, how are we helping them find a job? How are we helping them connect with those services? How are we helping them pay their bills? How are we helping them, get a good start in their lives? Those are the kinds of things that we can partner with other municipalities to provide. And I think that's been lacking in our town up until now.
Thank you. Nate?
Yes, I'm really passionate about this. As you can tell behind me, this wall here, this is my youth baseball team that I'm a volunteer coach for. I've been coaching for 3 years. I'm a volunteer baseball coach for the Rochester Hispanic Youth Baseball League. They play mostly at Baden Park and on North Clinton Avenue. It's the most fun I have during the week. And I'll tell you, serving those kids is my passion. We have to keep the youth engaged and give them a safe place to play. I won't bring up the parks because my colleague Chris Werner covered that so well. I want to touch on the second part, healthy and engaged. When I was the chief of staff for Assemblymember Meeks, we authored a bill that expanded double up food bucks. That you could take your EBT card, your food stamps card, and you can get half off of fresh fruits and vegetables. And they brought those fruits and vegetables directly to your neighborhood, increasing that, again, accessibility to that healthy lifestyle, as well as we look for a new community center, making sure it accommodates the needs of our young people in this community and our seniors.
Thank you. Jesus?
In my personal experience growing up in Brighton, when I got out of high school, I didn't really like the school day. I didn't really know what to do after school or have anything really to look forward to or anything. So I think, and also working at the high school, a lot of the kids seem to have the same issue. And most of the time they find recreation from the actual high school and not from town supplied activities. So I think a lot of kids would benefit from having town teams, or like if there was a Brighton baseball league that we could all have our kids go to and have their names. I know in Chile, they have their own league where they use the names of the MLB, and each neighborhood has like a team, or they get divided up and have tryouts. I feel like that would be a great thing to implement in Brighton, to bring kids out and to actively want to play with each other.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to something that a couple of you mentioned before, is accessibility. So Rachel, you'll get this question first, and you'll have 1.5 minutes. When we talk about accessibility, what does that mean to you?
Thank you for asking that question. Accessibility is really important to me as a person and as a parent to do adult children with developmental disabilities. Much of the talk that we've been hearing tonight about accessibility, really what people are talking about is connectivity, which is a really important thing for people with and without disabilities. And the town has fabulous plans for now and in the future for increasing that connectivity around our town. When I talk about accessibility, I'm talking about actual access to our town, its services and its businesses. I'm talking about whether blind folks can cross safely at every single intersection. Are sidewalks wide enough and safe enough for those with mobility impairments? Why do the town board meetings have ASL interpretation but no captions, either on the live stream or on the recording that gets posted on YouTube? When the town communicates with residents, is that communication accessible to those whose primary language isn't English, or to someone without access to the internet? What are the town plans to upgrade facilities and infrastructure to better meet ADA requirements? These things are so incredibly important to everyday people and the people that we think about the least often in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. You have 1 minute.
Well, it's my opinion that we shouldn't limit how we talk about accessibility, right? So it's connecting transportation. It's also, you know, when you first brought up accessibility, the first thing I thought of my grandfather, who is deaf, who went to Yale Law School, who opened a practice, but who regularly faced discrimination in his community, but also in his law practice, because he was reading lips and couldn't hear what his professors were saying, couldn't hear what his teachers were saying. And I watched that struggle. And so I think, so accessibility, I believe, has a broad definition. I think of my grandfather, I think of connecting roads, connecting playgrounds. What I would like to do is I would like to bring what our town is doing directly to people. You know, in my career, I spent a lot of time organizing town halls throughout the country. I've organized town halls in rural Virginia. I've organized town halls in downtown Rochester. It's been such a pleasure going to the doors. And a lot of times our conversations at the doors are just about what the town of Brighton is doing right now and what we can do better. I'm going to bring that attitude to make sure the town hall is open to all of our citizens.
Thank you, Jesus.
I agree with my colleague about how we are talking about accessibility a little bit too much, like collectivity. We should really also talk about those who aren't able to get around as easily as we are, even walking or riding a bike. A lot of construction goes on. In my own experience walking down the streets, there's a lot of construction going on the sidewalks and making it hard for people that are in motorized scooters to get around. So being faster and thinking about always having the idea that someone else that isn't able to walk or isn't able to see or isn't able to hear is going to be coming down this path. And we should think of the way we can make it accessible for all of us to get through there. Especially during the winter, a lot of people have to ride their mobility scooters down the side of the road instead of on the sidewalk, because like my colleague said earlier, we are so bad at getting the sidewalks cleared. So yeah.
Thank you so much. The next question will focus on public safety, and Nate, you're up first.
Donna, was I to respond to?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I jumped the gun. I apologize, Chris. We would welcome your response.
Regarding accessibility, first of all,
Correct.
the plans that we're considering for town hall, and we're looking at drawings and costs. The town hall renovation would include a new front entryway, which would be fully handicapped accessible through the front of the building with ramps. Also, we would move the elevators to the front of the building so they do not have to go around the back. That would make town hall totally accessible as well. The sidewalk improvements that we are concluding now along Elmwood Avenue have filled in gaps that have been there for many, many decades. And now you can go all the way from the city line to 12 corners on a sidewalk without interruption. Similarly, the Crittenden Road sidewalks were added so that the Rustic Village folks could get out to Henrietta Road. Also, in terms of accessibility, open meetings, our board meetings are all hybrid now with both Zoom and in-person commitment. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. So I just want to remind the audience, if you have questions, put it in the Q&A. Our next set of questions, like I said before, is around public safety. And Nate, the Brighton Police Department just issued its annual report, which revealed vast disproportionality in traffic citations and arrest rates for African Americans. To what do you attribute that, and what should the town response be? You have 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Harris. That's an important question. I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge that implicit bias is real, and it impacts people of color in our town today. The data that you're talking about, it's very troubling. It's troubling to all of us here on this call, I'm sure. And the first thing I want to do, I want to commend our town. I want to commend our town police for being the only town that I know of in upstate New York that collects this data, this data by race, and then presents it publicly, which means we're able to have this critical life-saving conversation that we're having tonight and at the town board. But it's my understanding that we do not collect racial data on all traffic stops, including the stops that don't result in an arrest or a ticket. And I believe that needs to change. So what I would like to do is I'd like to advocate with our state partners to allow for the collection of this data and the public distribution of this data so we can have a better understanding of this problem. I also will rely on the expertise and the important work of the IDEA board, the board created for diversity and equity. A board consists of our community members and our chief diversity and equity officer, Miriam Moore, to present solutions that we can implement in the town of Brighton. And again, I want to commend our town for, again, I believe the only town in upstate New York that has a chief diversity equity officer like Miriam Moore. So I will rely on her expertise and the expertise of our community members on the IDEA board.
Thank you, Jesus.
As a Black man in America, I'm gonna be truthfully honest. I'm not a big fan of police, and the stats that you showed me are not really surprising, especially since implicit bias is a thing and we've been dealing with it for a long time. I think involving or advocating for an implicit bias training or some type of training to give to the police officers so that they understand the implicit bias that they have, and so that way they can work with someone to figure out how to not do that, which in my head seems pretty easily not to do, but to be said, that's all.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Yes, I was equally disturbed with the statistics, but we need to dive much deeper into that. And that's why I called Chief Cathaldi the day following that report. That's also why we have Miriam Moore there to help analyze the data. The chief pointed out to me that part of one of the greatest assets of Brighton is our location, that we can get to anywhere quickly. At the same time, we have a lot of people traveling through Brighton because of our location as well. So we want to look at the data. We want to see why a stop was made, what was the nature of the charge. And similarly with arrests, the chief pointed out that the arrests are actually generated by complaints, not by the police themselves. But does an arrest follow? That's something to look at as well. Just because a complaint is called in, what's the next step from there? The police training includes anti-bias training, procedural justice training, and our chief diversity officer is actively involved in all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. I agree with everything that the three gentlemen have suggested so far. And it is 2023, ladies and gentlemen. It is, we all know, whether we like it or not, that implicit bias is a thing. As police officers, as public servants, the citizens of Brighton and the people who pass through Brighton are owed more from our law enforcement. They have had training. We pride ourselves in that, and I think that is wonderful. What I would like to see is a path towards accountability. Yes, we need the data, and we're not going to be able to have accountability until we have more data, but we need to think about and know if there are particular officers that are more prone than others to doing this, and to hold those officers accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next set of next question takes us back to housing, but housing related to our seniors. And Jesus, you will be the first to take this question, and you'll have 1.5 minutes. Regarding affordable housing, seniors on limited and set incomes will find it increasingly difficult to stay in their homes if more consideration isn't taken in regards to property taxes. How do you suggest we help seniors stay in their homes?
I can't agree more. Every day I talk to the register at the high school who I grew up with, and she's like 80 years old now. Her name's Mrs. Schultz, and she's talked about how she's had to move out specifically because she couldn't afford her housing on her fixed income anymore. Taxes in Brighton, especially property taxes, are extremely complicated, and I'm admit that since I'm so young, I really don't know much about taxes, and I'm willing to learn a lot more about it. But I feel like we should always keep the people in mind that have been here before us and have laid their roots here for so long when we're talking about finding ways to help them maintain those roots in those places so their family can come back and visit them, because that's a lot of what I hear from all the older generation that I work with every single day. Yeah.
Thank you. Chris, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, being able to age in place is very important. I can feel it coming myself, I suppose, but and I'd like to stay in my house as long as I can. Affordability is always the issue. I know one of the things we've just recently done is to increase the income level for the senior exemption on your tax assessment, so that seniors with somewhat higher income now still qualify for that tax exemption, or excuse me, it's tax abatement, as well as affordable housing in general. That the developers know that that's a requirement in the town of Brighton if they're going to put in a residential development, such as the Terrence Building or such as Winfield, the Winfield project, that they are expected to have a significant portion, generally 10% of that, as affordable housing. That's how Brighton sees after those folks that need that kind of assistance.
Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, thanks for asking this question again, and more specifically. Right now, I can't believe no one has said it yet. 14618 is the hottest real estate zip code in the country, which is phenomenal for those homeowners, but not really good at all. That's not good news for the 43% of households who are renters in Brighton. Many of those are seniors, and many of those homeowners are seniors. And what can we do proactively? What can we do as a service, as a municipality, to be able to connect homeowners with programs and services to be able to prepare for these things in advance, whether it be grants, tax abatements, things like that, so that they're not taken by surprise and pushed out of their homes.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, what an important topic. Well, I first want to commend the current town board and the town leadership for being the only town in Monroe County that provided a full exemption for low income and disabled homeowners. Again, the only town in Monroe County to do that. You know, I work currently at Monroe County, The county held the line on property taxes this year. And you know what? Brighton is a residential town, which we love. We don't have big commercial sprawling, superstores. The balance of that is, okay, we have to generate revenue. So smart projects that bring our town revenue without changing the quality of living can help keep things more affordable for our seniors. The last thing I want to mention, again, I work for Monroe County currently. I work closely with the Office for the Aging. One thing we haven't touched on yet, during the pandemic, we became very aware that our seniors are lonely. There's too many lonely seniors out there. So working with the Office for the Aging and the director, Steve Newcomb, who I'm on the phone with every day, to provide our seniors a healthy lifestyle, as well as making sure to keep their property taxes as low as possible.
Thank you. The next question is in regards to how would you work to improve the walking, biking infrastructure in our town? For example, while we desire to improve walking infrastructure, we have a number of state and county roadways with limited roadways and safe crossings for pedestrians in our town. Do you believe we have leverage with our state and county partners to affect these changes? And Chris, you are first to answer this question. You have 1.5 minutes.
If the question is leverage, I'd say yes. In fact, we've persuaded the county executive to make Elmwood Avenue a road diet there, which will be 3 lanes. The center lane will be for turning, and then 2 through lanes, but include 2 full-size bike lanes in both directions that will go from the city line all the way to 12 Corners. Elmwood Avenue has been a very dangerous site for bicycling, and that we're very enthusiastic about. We had a press conference on that. But things like the Auburn Trail, which is just across the highway from my home. As I said, that may be the major reason I go to Whole Foods, is I can ride my bicycle there. And I rode my bike there on for the opening of that store. That was paid for entirely at developers' expense. That was 2 miles of now handicapped accessible bicycle and pedestrian trailway that is a tremendous asset for the town. Also, the Highland Crossing Trail is new within the last few years. And we're also working on a University Trail, which will connect RIT, U of R, and MCC as well. That's the latest focus we have, the Multiversity Trail. So we are working very, very hard. It's at the top of our list for sidewalks and bike trails for such accessibility. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Rachel, you have 1 minute.
Great. I believe that we, as Brighton, have a lot of leverage. And if we are not getting cooperation from our governmental partners, I'm not suggesting that we're not, but if that is the case, that's where the people come in. That's where the constituents and the residents come in. If our governmental partners at state DOT, for example, are not being responsive to those of us in elected office, then they can hear from our constituents as well. And we can band together to work on specific issues and bring out our partners at different municipal levels to try to get some of these things done. I can imagine how frustrating it is to not be able to provide an answer as someone in town government for a street that is not maintained by the town.
Thank you. Nate?
Yeah, what a great question. You know, this was Christine Carrata, the current town council member, and I, the first time we met. I think we did 3 hours of talking on this one question. So great question. I want to say this is where experience matters, folks. So working together collaboratively with different governments. And so I've worked at the federal level, I've worked at the state level, I work for the county. I'd be honored to work at the town level. I know the town of Brighton has been trying to get that bike lane done for a long time. But until County Executive Adam Bell's administration came in and the supervisor and the town board have that working relationship to get things done, that's what I can bring to the town council. I've sat in those meetings with the county executive. I've sat in those meetings with RTS. And again, I'm going to go back to bus because the RTS cut service to Brighton during the COVID pandemic when they were trying to serve a larger group of students. And I think that's great. I think it's great that they serve those students, but let's bring RTS back to Brighton, right? Let's bring more reliable bus service, more routes to Brighton. I've sat in those meetings and I have the experience to be able to bring that service to Brighton.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, I agree that Brighton has a lot of leverage here, and what we're doing with the bike lanes on Elmwood is a great thing. But I also believe that we also have a lot of work to do at home. It goes back to being more accessible and being more inclusive with disabled communities, being able to provide separate sidewalks and separate lanes for bikes in our own town where we can control like different side streets. Like, for example, Avon that doesn't have any sidewalks on it, or different places that just don't have sidewalks and people have to walk their dogs on the side of the street and be afraid of cars. We can use our leverage to continue to develop our access to the other parts of the city, but we also have to focus on our own town.
Thank you so much for answering that set of questions. We'll move to a question around, is the town sustainability oversight committee fulfilling its mission? And this question goes first to Rachel. You'll have 1.5 minutes.
Environmental justice is something that I'm very passionate about, and very proud that Brighton even has a sustainability oversight committee and a climate action plan that is in full swing. I think we are leaps and bounds ahead of other municipalities in this area, and that's something that we should be really proud of. We all know that sometimes the wheels of government turn slowly, and the Sustainability Oversight Committee is an advisory committee. They can make suggestions, but they are not the lawmakers. That's on those in elected office to make sure that those things happen, and to make the commitments to make those changes. I do see that happening, but I think that it is 2023 with climate emergencies all around us, in the very air that we breathe this past week. We need to really fast track our efforts to implement some of their recommendations and go even further at the town level.
Thank you, Nate. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, great question. So, I want to commend our town again. I really am so proud to live in Brighton. It's one of the reasons why Samantha and I wanted to move home so badly. Our community led when we signed a community choice aggregation program. Okay, so we provided affordable energy that was clean energy, and we locked into a great rate. Now the problem was the company defaulted, and then everybody noticed, right, your bill spiked again. But you know what? While we were getting our power from the community choice aggregation program, our energy prices were actually lower than people that were still on RG&E getting gas and oil. Okay, so what I'm looking forward to doing in the next town council is to starting this again, finding a company that's reliable, so we can provide this clean energy for the future generations of Brighton. I'm excited that our town is already taking a big step toward that. It'll be a priority to make sure to listen to public input, to explain every step what we're doing, and to provide affordable housing for everybody here in Brighton that's clean energy.
Thank you. Jesus?
I think it's great that we have a sustainability committee. And as Rachel said, they're just an advocacy committee. They can't really get anything done without the wheels of the government moving along. And from experience going to the climate summit at the high school and listening to all the different presentations that were there, a lot of us in the younger generation are wondering when are the cogs going to catch up to how fast global warming is moving. It's really on the town board and the people and people in charge to make the policies and advocate and listen to the people advocating for these policies to change immediately and not in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So yeah. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you. That is a great question, and it's on the forefront of our agendas. I was actually liaison to the Sustainability Oversight Committee when we began the Climate Smart Community project, and we are now a climate smart community because we've hit so many of those mileposts. Actually, the Sustainability Committee was the outfit that suggested that we add geothermal heat and air conditioning to our town hall renovation specifications, and we sent out those specifications to get new bids on the planning and oversight for the geothermal energy to be included in our town hall renovation project. Also, recently we now had the Cobra headlights being replaced with LED fixtures, which, although the town has to pay RG&E for the undepreciated value of those Cobra headlights, it's a payback period of about 2 to 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question will go first to Nate. What should the relationship be between the government of the town of Brighton and our county legislature, the state assembly and Senate, and our federal delegation?
Well, I'm again so glad you asked. You know, I'm proud to be endorsed by Congressman Joe Morelli, by County Executive Adam Bello, by the Minority Leader, Yaversha Roman. You know, I've worked in relationships with these folks, and I'm in constant contact with them. And you know what? This is again, you know, what I've been saying. We can all sit here and talk about the importance of accessibility or clean energy, but you know what? To get things done, you have to be able to work collaboratively. You have to know the history and have the experience that have been in that room to be able to make these things happen. So again, I work with these folks all the time. I knock doors with these folks. You know, politics, I don't think, you know, politics, it really matters that you're able to work well with people, that people feel that they can trust you. And I'm expanding that not just to the folks you mentioned, but also our neighbors, our residents, the folks that we serve every single day. And so what I would offer, which is what I tell everybody at the door, is I give out my cell phone number frequently. I give out my personal email. I'm constantly available, knocking on doors or hosting community forums. And you know, hopefully, you know, 4 years in, you guys, everybody in Brighton feels like they know me well and they can call me up. I'm a collaborative person, and I look forward to working with those partners. And I'm proud to have so many of their endorsements, the endorsement of our current town supervisor, Bill Maley, all the way to Congressman Joe Morelli and Adam Bello.
Thank you. Jesus, you have a minute.
I think our relationship with those different sets of government should always be collaborative, but also respectful, and mostly respectful for those that we are advocating for. If we can't get what we need, then we should be straightforward and let them know that we need this for the people that we support or that we are representing right now. I see that a lot of times politicians can be collaborative, and to the extent where they're just looking out for themselves and not really looking out for everyone that's involved. So I feel like being collaborative and respectful and understanding who you're there for is the best way we can develop a relationship with the government.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. Obviously, a relationship with the county, the state, and the federal government is essential because we all serve the same purpose. We serve the people. We at the local government level, however, are the ones that provide the direct services that people use every day. And I believe that our local and federal politicians understand that. I'm personally supported by Sue Hughes Smith and Adam Bello, expressed their support for my campaign, and also been endorsed by Joe Morelli. They very much know what our needs are. As one particular example is that change in the Elmwood Avenue configuration. It took some discussion, but Adam Bello came around fairly readily that this would best serve the people of Brighton by changing the format of that roadway. Yes, and we've gotten grants from the county, grants from the state as well, that have helped us improve the town in innumerable ways. Thank you.
Rachel.
Love going last because everybody said all the stuff already. Agree with what the three gentlemen have said. Having those collaborative working relationships is incredibly important in order to get things done. We must keep in mind, however, that the people we are getting things done for, as Jesus said, are the residents who live in the town of Brighton. And oftentimes the services and supports that they need cannot be given to them by someone in elected office. So it's about connecting on the ground with community-based organizations and knowing what supports and services are available in our community to help your constituents. That's the business that I've been in for the last 30 years, connecting individuals and families to the supports and services that they need. And that's what I will continue to do on the town board.
Thank you. So, Jesus, you will have the next question first. What is your position on the campaign to take over RG&E and turn it into a public utility? You have 1.5 minutes.
I like the idea because RG&E is a giant monopoly and has all of us in their back pocket. They literally just stole $200 from my mom the other day. So I'm all in about making RG&E a public utility, or even adding more green, accessible energy sources, like what Nate was talking about. Well, for the entire town and different companies, not just a single one, so people have the option to go to different ones depending on if they have a problem. That way we will find out exactly who's the best and who is providing the best service at the best price in a reasonable way, not in a monopolistic way. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You have 1 minute.
Thanks. You have to ask yourself, would this be a simple process? Is this just like Fairport Electric? No, that model is no longer available. They purchased Niagara hydropower. To take over RG&E with a government operation, you can just take a look at what happened down on Long Island. The Long Island Power Authority was formed and they were unable to administer it, and it's now being operated by PSEG in New Jersey. More importantly, you're not going to get the power company for free. It's going to be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in legacy energy sources, not in clean energy. We are a clean energy town, and much better that we should be investing in clean energy sources and not be saddled with a white elephant. Thanks.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yes. I am wholeheartedly in support of a public utility at Monroe County. Some of you may have heard of the Metro Justice Red campaign, so I am definitely a supporter of that effort. I think that energy and the access to power and heat and electricity is a basic human right. and a public service that should be provided and should not be provided for profit. I am not naive in that I absolutely understand that this is a really big undertaking and will not be able to be solved or implemented within a short period of time. But I think that we owe it to the people who live in Brighton and the rest of Monroe County to fund the study, to find out what it will take to make it happen, including renewable and clean energy resources, so that we can reinvest those funds back into the infrastructure to help serve the people.
Thank you. Nate?
Well, the first thing I want to say is I'm against this current proposed rate increase. I don't think that Brighton residents should be paying more for worse services. The second thing I want to say is I believe that the proposal is a study done by Monroe County. I don't think that's fair, and I'll tell you why. RG&E serves more than just Monroe County.
Right.
So I don't think we should burden just the Monroe County taxpayers for this study. I would like to see New York State do this study. And let me tell you some of what I would like to see studied. I'd like to see studied what shape this infrastructure is. We were just talking about making sure that we keep this town more affordable for seniors. Well, I want to make sure we're not putting our seniors and our young folks on the hook for investing millions of dollars into infrastructure that's no longer properly functioning. I would instead really like to see us invest, like I said earlier, the community choice aggregation model. Let's invest in clean, renewable energy that we know is more affordable, because let's be honest, that's where our future is. And I care about our future, as Samantha and I talk about starting our family here in Brighton.
Thank you so much. So the next question goes first to Chris. And we're going back to the topic of affordable housing. The term affordable housing refers to people in a particular income bracket, which exclude those with incomes less than $40,000. When you refer to affordable housing, what income level are you referring to? You have 1.5 minutes.
$40,000 a year is about, well, it's not quite minimum wage. It'd be about $30,000 a year, but you can't live on minimum wage, even in a two-family, two people sharing a home. So affordable, it's going to be graded anywhere from 10,000 to 60,000. I do a lot of bankruptcy work in my legal practice. I do people's budgets all the time. I've seen how people are unable to meet their basic household expenses on a gross income of $60,000 a year. The median household income for a family of two is about $80,000 a year. So it's got to be a flexible number that would include all folks and people. The way housing prices are going today, as Rachel mentioned, the hottest zip code in America, numbers are getting astronomical. So I would not suggest that there's any break-off point, but everybody could use some sort of assistance up to a certain level, and certainly much higher than $40,000, I believe you mentioned.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. $40,000 a year is much too low of a number, in my opinion. Is this something that I'm incredibly well versed in and know a lot of detail? No, I don't. But I do know from talking to people every single day that this is a struggle and a stressor for them. What I've been hearing from the large number of people who are renting single family homes rather than owning them is that they can't qualify for a mortgage. However, their rental payment is more than what they would be paying for a mortgage payment on that very home. And I think that is incredibly unfair, and that there are things that we can do as a town to think about it and to try to solve that problem for the people that live in Brighton. The possibility of public banking, for example, could be one long-term solution to that problem. A municipally owned bank where the municipality and not a corporation gets to decide what the qualifications are.
Thank you. Nate?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Harris. You know, I have my master's degree in public administration from the Maxwell School, and I have a lot of professors who'd be mad at me if I just pull a number out of thin air here. Affordable housing, like my colleague Chris mentioned, you have to take into account just cost of living. So there are many variables. So I don't want to just give you a number. There are many variables. You know, Samantha and I just bought our first home, and we love living here in Brighton, right on Model Lane. And it took us 2 years of house hunting to find this home. So trust me, I know the struggle. And I talk to a lot of people at the doors who tell me, geez, I wish my son or daughter could move back here too. They've been looking for years. And we also need to take into account the people that have been living in their neighborhoods. I talked to a neighbor on Crandon Way who lived next to my dad, who was growing up on Crandon Way, who still is living there and still talks about cost of living. So affordable housing, making sure that people can live in their homes and move back here.
Thank you. Jesus?
In my experience, in my entire life, I've only worked minimum wage jobs, and I have never broken $26,000 a year. I've worked at Costco's. I'm working at the high school now as a security guard. And a lot of my friends, the TAs, the paras and stuff, they all live outside or on the borders or in apartments in Brighton. And they have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to afford their apartment that they're living in. And I'm constantly asking them like, oh, are you ever going to be able to possibly buy a house or something? And they're like, I don't even have time to even think about that because I have to work so much. So the cost of living has increased so much that now minimum wage cannot even possibly think of affording a house. So we need to think about how do we increase the minimum wage, or how do we provide access to people with programs and stuff. Sorry.
Thank you for your responses to all these questions. The time has quickly moved forward through this forum. Now it's time for the last question. And Rachel, you will be the first person to answer this question. And I think it's very appropriate as we in this forum. What is one accomplishment you would like to be able to point to at the end of your term on town council? Rachel, you have 1.5 minutes.
That is a great question. You are right, Dr. Harris. The thing that I have talked most often about with folks meeting them in our community is the possibility of our new recreation facility. It comes up at almost every door, that and affordability. And I would like to not just make sure that we get a new recreation facility that is correct in size and scale for what we need in our town, but I would like to go above and beyond just what we need, and to be able to partner to provide other supports and services that will enhance people's lives who live in Brighton. I would like to bring a community hub location through the systems integration project at Monroe County, known right now as Together Now, if anyone's familiar. That would be a walk-in office that would hopefully be located in our new recreation facility for anyone to walk into to get immediate help with anything they might need, from taxes to eviction to employment to addiction and beyond. And making sure that our facility has a variety of things, not just tap dance and senior lunches, so that it can actually be of service to the people who live in the town of Brighton.
Thank you. Nate, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. after a full term, I hope that people can say that our town is a more equitable town for all. It's a more livable town. It's a safer town, and a more connected Brighton. I hope that we can make we can make policy that would lead to a cleaner Brighton. And most of all, what I've learned from my friend, again, my friend and mentor, Assembly Member Damon Meeks, I hope that people can see our town council as servant leaders. I remember in our assembly office, somebody called looking for the assembly member, and I ran out of the office looking for him. He was mowing the lawn of a senior resident because they just had a fall and they needed help clearing their yard. I hope that we have a town council that reflects the values of Brighton, the values that have made me so proud to call Brighton my home, my family's home for 3 generations, the values that are why Samantha and I moved back to be here. We love our hometown, and we want to leave it a better place for the next generations to come.
Thank you, Jesus.
Sorry, could you repeat that question for me, please?
Surely. What is one accomplishment you would like to be able to point to at the end of your term?
I would love to have the accomplishment of making Brighton more accessible and making sidewalks more accessible for everyone in different neighborhoods and stuff, and also bringing more recreational activities for high schoolers and kids and stuff, like a town sports team or a town sports teams that compete in a league together. That's what I would love to look back on, and also yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Dr. Harris. My primary focus is a community center. We've been served very well by the school district and now the Talmudic Institute, being able to rent that space over at Brookside, but it's old and it does not really suit our needs. But not just a recreation center, we're talking about a community center. Our senior programs are one of the biggest programs there, and distribution of meals is incredibly important to them, and a place where they can go during the day and socialize and get out of their homes. That's really a critical service that we have to have there. We also have daycare there and day recreation programs for children in there. Our new recreation center or community center will have performance space. And also my image of what the so-called Winter's Farmers Market, which is 3 hours a week, 6 months of the year, is really a recreation and a community center space that has been paid for all by grants. And that will be part of our new community center ultimately.
That concludes the Q&A portion of the program. Rachel, can you present your 2-minute closing remark?
Certainly. When I was thinking about tonight, the phrase "a rising tide lifts all boats" came into my mind. Brighton's in a really healthy financial position as a town, and obviously we have a lot to offer the folks that live here. But the more I thought about it, I'm not quite so sure about that. During a rising tide, some boats will make it to the shore safely. Other boats will run aground, take on water, or sink. How can Brighton take advantage of our rising tide and at the same time make sure that everyone else's boat is seaworthy? Tenant protections, increases in public transportation. How can we work on erasing those red lines that are drawn on the border between Brighton and Rochester? That true affordability requires stability. I support expanding public services, as I've said here tonight, including additional refuse districts and perhaps a townwide composting program. I wholeheartedly support publicly owned utilities and the possibility of a public bank for Brighton, ensuring that these public services serve the people, not private companies. As a town council member, I promise to listen, to search for solutions, and to put our town's resources to work for all of us. I wanted to just take a moment and thank again the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, and to remind everybody out there listening, or to tell you if you don't already know, that I am the only candidate in this race with 5 organizational endorsements, not people, but organizations. Justice in Action Brighton, New York Public Action Network, Working Families Party, Eleanor's Legacy, and Rock DSA. Thank you for everyone for being here and for your vote.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to Dr. Harris for hosting this important forum. When I first began my campaign, I spent several hours sitting with former town supervisor Sandy Frankel at the Charbroil. She told me about her campaign for town supervisor at a time when no woman had ever won that seat in our town's history. Sandy would go door to door explaining her vision for our town to protect green spaces, expand walking paths, and to create bike lanes. As we know, Sandy was successful, and thanks to her visionary leadership, Brighton has dramatically expanded our green spaces and accessibility. I share Sandy's values and vision, and I'm honored to have her endorsement. We can ensure that Brighton remains a 15-minute town where residents can commute to essential locations such as grocery stores and schools without needing a car. However, goals don't mean much unless you can get the job done. I have helped achieve policy outcomes for both New York State and Monroe County, 2 entities that we need to collaborate with in order to implement our vision. I have the experience in local government and in education and public policy to implement our vision. Over a 4-year term, we can make a difference. We can make Brighton a better town for everyone. You know, Samantha and I returned home because we want to start our family surrounded by Brighton values. This is a community that loves and values its diversity and each neighbor. When the Jewish community was attacked in Pittsburgh, the Muslim community showed up to pray with us here in Brighton. And when the Muslim community was attacked in New Zealand, the Brighton Jewish community showed up to pray with Brighton's Muslim community. We are fortunate to have grown up in Brighton, which cherishes these universal human values, and it is our goal to continue to make this community a great place to live for generations to come. I would be honored to earn your vote on June 27th. Thank you so much for listening.
Jesus.
I really want to thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity. It's been a great learning experience. I've learned a lot from everything we've done today. I stand before you as a passionate advocate for building a sustainable, accessible, and equitable community. Throughout my engagement and discussion and consultations, I have delved into various aspects of creating a town that prioritizes environmental responsibility and promotes inclusivity and strives for fairness. I firmly believe that our town's success lies in striking delicate balance between development and protection of our natural environment. By embracing sustainable design and construction practices, conserving our precious natural areas, and encouraging smart growth with a focus on compact mixed-use development, we can forge a path towards a thriving community that respects and preserves our natural heritage. But sustainability goes beyond just the environment. It also encompasses accessibility and equity. I'm deeply committed to ensuring that our town becomes accessible to all, regardless of ability or disability. By enhancing our infrastructure, promoting universal design principles, and fostering an inclusive mindset, we can create a community that is welcoming and accommodating to every resident. Furthermore, equity lies at the heart of our mission. It is imperative that we strive for social justice and fair distribution of resources. By addressing disparities, promoting affordable housing initiatives, and engaging in open dialogue with all members of our community, we can build a town that champions fairness and equal opportunities for every resident. I am excited to engage or to have engaged with this. Like, this was amazing. And I'm really happy that you guys let me do this or invited me to come do this. I've learned a lot, and I hope that we all do great. Have a good day.
Thank you. Chris?
Thanks, Doctor. So folks, I said in my opening that I was effective. I believe I have been. So what have I done? What have we as a town board accomplished? Now here's a list. Inclusion, diversity, and equity plan, climate smart community, community choice aggregation, expanding tax base, conservative budgets during times of high inflation, incentive zoning amenities that share in developers' success, parks and trails that never existed before, pedestrian and bicycle linkages, complete streets, 100 new acres of open space, miles of new sidewalks, and my own initiative, Safe Gun Storage in Brighton. It's that has made Brighton one of the few communities in the state and the nation with this simple common sense ordinance. Also, we found funding sources through incentive zoning and private and governmental grants to minimize the tax impact of our improvements. And we continue to encourage and assist the formation of neighborhood districts that provide cheaper, safer, and more efficient individual neighborhood services, all while maintaining exceptional community services which are unequaled in Monroe County, which again is my primary job. And at the same time, maintaining open and responsive government. At one doorstep, a resident demanded to know my platform, and I went through a litany of all these exceptional services, improvements, and initiatives, which he agreed were what he loved about Brighton. So that's my platform. More of what we've been giving all this time, more of all of that, and more into the future, like implementing the climate action plan and idea plan, building a community center campus, renovating and creating a green town hall, more and more sidewalks, trails and linkages, affordable housing integrated into new development, updating the zoning code, and enhancing communication within the community with 21st century tools. I'm excited about Brighton's future. With the vote and support of these folks, we will achieve these goals together. And thanks for your time tonight and this opportunity. Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank the candidates for this discussion of issues. We also want to thank the attendees who joined us this evening. With that, I'm turning it back to Mary Hassan Kalin.
Thank you, Donna. I'd like to add my thanks to our moderator, Dr. Donna Harris, and to the candidates for the Brighton Town Council for giving us a chance to get answers to our questions. Once again, this forum has been recorded and it will be posted on the League's YouTube site as well as our website. A link will be sent to everyone who registered for tonight's forum. Please feel free to share that link. A few reminders. First of all, please make sure that your voter registration is up to date. If you've moved since the last election, you should re-register so that you can vote in the right place. If you want to vote by absentee ballot, you need to apply for it in advance. The deadline for registration is June 17th. Primary early voting runs from June 17th through June 25th. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Tuesday and Thursday, 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. Election day is June 27th. By now, you should have received a postcard from the Board of Elections telling you where to vote. Please go to our online voter guide, vote411.org, to see the offices and the candidates on your ballot, as well as candidates' positions on issues. It's especially helpful because people don't always know what districts they live in. And if you just enter your address, Vote 411 will display the offices and the candidates specific to your address. And please, all of tonight's candidates have posted responses on Vote 411. Please check them. So that's it for tonight. Once again, thanks to everyone for participating and watching this evening.